a.m. earlier today, admitted to making false statements in 2017 to a U.S. Senate Select Committee on Intel about a plan to build a Trump Tower in Moscow. Frankly, that is the only line on the Associated Press that's given us a clue as to what this is about. Back to Professor Dershowitz. Good morning again, sir. You made a comment a moment ago about the conflicted statements Michael Cohen has been through over the past year and a half. Do you believe legally he's a good witness, sir?
Well, legally, he's already, now he's admitting to making false statements, so his credibility as a witness diminishes. The question is whether he has information that might contradict what others have said about buildings in Moscow, or whether or not that constitutes any kind of criminal activity. I find that very hard to find. What's happening is the special prosecutor is making all of his cases based on false statements. It's interesting. In other parts of the world, you can't even prosecute people for that. But practically the entire series of indictments grows out of false statements rather than any substantive charges. Because, for example, hypothetically, if they were building buildings or planning to build buildings in Russia, surely that wouldn't be a crime. But lying about it might be a crime. So we're seeing many of these cases being built around false statements.
Mm-hmm. Before the Thanksgiving break, we were told to the White House the president submitted his written answers to Bob Mueller. Could that have an impact on what we're seeing here, or do you believe they're in different silos, sir?
Yes, I think it could. I think, as I said even before the president gave his answers, they're going to comb through every one of his answers and see if they can come up with anybody who can contradict anything the president said. That's why it's called a perjury trap, because even if the president believes what he said was true, if somebody will contradict it, then the president can be charged with lying to government officials, which is, the equivalent of perjury. So that's why it's so dangerous for anybody who is the subject of an investigation to answer questions by the prosecution, because the prosecution then combs through evidence, tries to get evidence that they can then use to show contradiction.
Mm-hmm. What is your reaction to the report of yesterday that Kevin Downing, the attorney for Paul Manafort, has been in contact with Rudy Giuliani, representing the president clearly, and for lack of a better
nothing
phrase,
wrong with that from the president's point of view. Any good lawyer tries to reach out to witnesses, even witnesses who are cooperating with the other side, perfectly legitimate to do it. In fact, it's illegal for a prosecutor to say to one of his witnesses that you can't talk to lawyers for the other side. The question is, was it smart for Manafort and his lawyer to do that? And maybe not so smart, because look what happened. The plea deal imploded, and now he's going to get sentenced even more harshly than he would have had he made no deal.
Yeah. My question was not based on something that was done illegally. If you're a lawyer, you want to gather as much information as possible. If I were Rudy Giuliani, I'd want to talk with Kevin Downing and find out what Mueller's asking and what questions he has, sir.
And that's entirely legitimate. In fact, it's almost mandatory. Any good lawyer should do anything he can that's ethical and legal to try to find out as much as possible about the case that's being built against his client.
You mentioned the perjury trap, sir. Do you think that all of these cases are based on that? Meaning,
I think a lot of them are. I think the weakness of Mueller's substantive findings are suggested by the fact that he has to resort to false statement prosecutions, which really shows that he didn't start with very much. That the very fact that he's conducting an investigation has created these crimes. These are not crimes that had been committed prior to his appointment. They're crimes that were committed as the result of his appointment. And that, raises some questions about the role of special prosecutors in creating crimes or creating opportunities for crimes to be committed. In the end, I don't think Mueller is going to come up with very much in terms of criminal conduct that existed before he was appointed. And that's quite shocking.
Yeah, well, that's a very low legal bar. For example, I ask you about a date and you get the date wrong. I ask you about an email, you get the email wrong. That would be under the definition perjury.
Yeah. Well, technically it has to be willful and knowing and deliberate. But that puts the burden really on the defendant to show that he made a mistake rather than lied, and that's sometimes hard to do.
Sir, stand by. Thank you very much, Professor Alan Dershowitz.